Hey guys, welcome back to the JPM Performance channel. It is shop tour time, and it is our first shop tour for January of 2024. So Happy New Year's to all of you. Hope you guys had a good Christmas, good New Year's. It's been a couple weeks since we've had a shop tour, so we're going to be getting right back into it here, because here we are on January 3rd. I don't have my calendar. Lisa, I need my calendar. I think my calendar is going to be here before next week's shop tour. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. So, yep, had a good Christmas, good New Year's, but it's like at the end of the year, nobody's working, so we took a vacation as well. Gone for a week. Now we're back to it, and I just love being back in the shop. So let's get right into the shop tour. Assembly time. This is actually Chris Eden's Miata engine. Now it's kind of a unique thing. So this is an engine for a GT3 Miata that is boosted. And so because it's boosted, they have to run a pretty small inlet restrictor, similar to what they run in GT Light. But with boost, obviously, you get a lot more torque and things like that. So a little less compression than what we would normally run in a Miata engine, but with the amount of boost that we get to run, should be making some good power. So going to get this put together, just kind of starting assembly here, measuring everything, making sure everything's good. Get this thing together, get our compression calculated, and we'll be looking good. So got a couple of interesting cars in the shop. I know we were talking about how it was kind of empty before the end of the year, which is how it always is. But then the next thing you know, you get something like this in the shop. So this is a Caterham 7. So it is basically a replica of a Lotus Super 7 from the 60s. These are the new ones. You can buy these in kit form, and I think you can put in a multitude of different engines into these. A lot of these had Z-Tech motors, like 2-liter Z-Tech motors, Ford motors. This is a guy out of Kansas City. Apparently he clipped a deer, and he wants me to make sure the suspension's okay. So kind of an interesting looking car. You don't see these really on the street too often. We do see them on the racetrack in e-production, which they're actually a really awesome car for e-production, but you don't see them in street car form very often. So kind of neat to see that. So another interesting little project that we got in, and this guy was bringing me his RX8 in for doing a rear roll cage this is a time trials RX8. So just measured up for tubing, got that all ordered, thinking about how I want to design the rear section for the time trials. But then when I backed this thing in, I noticed that this thing was a little different than your typical RX8. Trying to decide exactly what this engine is. What does that say? L something X, LGX? I don't know. I think it's a Chevy. So, okay, before I really completely talk about things, I have no clue what I'm talking about. If you're interested in what this setup is, I know that he had it done by V8 Roadsters, and I've worked with V8 Roadsters in the past. That's the company that built all the subframes, front and rear, for when I was doing those LS motors into the Miatas. I think this is like an LSX type of it says GM right there. Look at that. So it's some sort of a 6-cylinder out of maybe a Camaro or something, 6-cylinder. But they sell the subframes that you can put these right into your RX8, and it fits really well. I don't know exactly what all is entailed. But it's probably 250 horse to the wheels, obviously a lot more torque than what your stock Renesis motor would have, and also obviously probably a lot more reliable. For any of you that have been around some of the Renesis engines, you know that they have a tendency to be a little problematic if you don't know how to take care of them. But this guy's done a lot of good stuff to this car. He's got the relocated battery to the back. Monster battery cable running from the battery back to, up to the engine. Looks like Corksport made a nice little setup here for the battery, and he's got a shutoff right here for the battery shutoff. So pretty nicely done. So we're going to put a rear main hoop harness bar, rear down tubes, and kind of get this thing so it's, you know, stiffened up and also a lot safer, of course. So nice looking RX8. I could also tell driving it in that it's pretty darn stiff. So this is going to be a really cool purpose-built time trials track car RX8. Pretty cool, I think. So I've always loved these RX8s. I actually had one, sheesh, almost when they first came out in like '06. I had a pretty new one and loved the car, and always thought they were awesome cars. Just a little light in the engine compartment. So kind of a neat little conversion going on there. So we did miss our shop tour right before Christmas, and so actually I was kind of done with everything I was doing in the shop, and so I spent a full day, believe it or not just 15 minutes, but I spent a full day working on the Mazda 2, completely finished all of the wiring, all of the looming, pulled the fuel injectors out, flow tested them, they were awesome, got the car back on the ground, and actually got it on the dyno even. So did some dyno testing, did some experimental changes to the car, maybe picked up a couple of little horsepower, but ran great. So now what I've got going on is it's back up in the air. I'm cleaning underneath. At the June sprints last year, when I ended up changing transmissions, I did not realize that the neutral switch on the second transmission was missing. And so I went out on the track, and a couple people came in and said I was smoking pretty bad, but this thing's actually been dripping off of underneath of the car since last June. So what I'm doing now is I'm crawling underneath, and what I like to do is I like to take a rag with a little bit of solvent, just like a red rag in your solvent tank, squeeze it out, lay under your car, and just start wiping it down, and just do the whole thing front to back. And when you're done, get a couple of clean ones and just wipe it off. And it really does a good job of, because you're using solvent and not water, you're not going to get water in places that you don't want it, places that can rust into your suspension. I am not the kind of guy that you'll see with a pressure washer on my race car. It's not going to happen. I try and clean it all by hand. Obviously, when you get out on the track, you get caught in a rain race. That's another story. But when we're cleaning the cars underneath especially, I like to use solvent. So I did actually also take apart the second transmission. I've got myself a little bit of a disaster there, which is already in process in a different manner. I'm going to have to completely rethink what I'm going to do with the transmission. But you can see I've got the bench cleaned off. I've got corner weight and alignment. It's kind of funny. I took some notes here from the June sprints that says refer to tire temps 9 and 10. So if you've ever used one of these Longacre tire temp what do you call these things? Memory tire pyrometer. So the beauty of these is you can turn these on, and you can just, as you're probing the tire, you can read. So you can go read. You don't have to write it all down. And what I wrote down here is refer to tire temps number 9 and 10, so you can store them in the memory. So when I turned it on, I haven't used this since June. It's dead. I need a battery. Sheesh. Couldn't do it. So I'm going to get a 9-volt battery so I can see what kind of tire temps I had. Just still gaining data about what this car is and what it does. But here we are, 1st of January. I could literally, if I didn't have to work for a living, I could load up and be in Sebring next weekend and be ready to race. So the car is super, super close. I'm going to get it on the scales, get it aligned, and then we're not racing until March. So we'll just kind of fiddle with stuff. I'm working on organizing spares. So that's the other thing that I've talked about in the past. So let's say your car's done in January, February. It's great. You have a lot more to do than just get your car ready. You need to think about your spares. You need to think about your trailer, your tow vehicle, and everything else that it takes to get to the races. So that's just as important in a successful race weekend as having your race car ready, in my opinion. So anyway, I appreciate you guys watching. I know I'm rambling a little bit, but if you've been watching my shop tours, you know that's one of the things that I do. So I appreciate you guys watching as always. And Happy New Year, and we'll get things geared up and have some interesting projects going here in the next few weeks coming into the springtime. We've got a big race. We've got a race at Homestead. The first race of the year is in Homestead this weekend. Only have maybe one or two guys running, but then the first Super Tour of the year is next weekend in Sebring. So that's a big one. Lots of customers will be there. We'll talk about that next week in the shop tour as well. But I hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Take a breath, get into January, and let's get ready to go racing. See you soon, guys. Take care.